Hello, everyone. Good day to all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this webinar. There is a number of us that will be here, which you can see on the screen. We will be giving you an update on a couple of our crew and well-being services that are available to all of our members. In particular, we will be talking about our enhanced pre-employment medical examination program that we have available in the Philippines, in India, and in Ukraine. We will then also be updating you on First Call, our program that is available in the US and since the end of September also available in Brazil. And then last but not least, we'll be updating you on the post-repatriation program that we have in place for the Philippines. If any of you, well, please, I hope all of you do, if you have any questions, please do put them into the Q&A tab. I have been told that there should be a Q&A tab available. Please put in your questions there and we will answer them towards the end of the presentation. So we'll go through the three programs first, and then I'll come back to the various Q&A and we'll deal with all of those towards the end. So let's kick off first with the enhanced PEME program that we have available. You can definitely find more information on the website as well if you go to the club's website. But what we wanted to update you on is we'll give you a quick overview of who is part of the PEME team, why it is so important to carry out enhanced PEMEs, what our new club's PEME program is, what do we have available in the various countries, what is the concession program that we have for the Philippines? How do we select the various clinics that are accredited by the club? And what are other things that we can do there? Who is part of the team? Myself, I'm part of the PEME team, and then we have Lucy, Abby, Michael, and Carol on the team. If you all, at any time, also outside of this webinar, I mean, have any questions that you would like to put to the PEME team, you can of course contact your regular club contact person, but you can also reach out to this nspme at NorthStandard email, and then one of us will be responding to you. When we look at claims from our perspective, and this was an analysis we've done over a period of about 6 policy years between 18 and 24, we can see that both by number on the left and by value on the right, we have about 22% of our claims that the club deals with that are related to people. That is a combination, of course, of injuries and illnesses, but a fair amount of those 20% are related to illnesses. And what we quite often see is that these illnesses can be pre-existing, that there are underlying issues with the seafarer, which is why the vast majority of the clubs have put enhanced PEMEs in place. But to tell us more about that, I'll hand it over to Lucy first.
Hi all. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about the club's enhanced PEME program. So as you're probably all aware, it is an underlying legal requirement for all seafarers to undergo a pre-employment medical examination before being deployed at sea. But in many jurisdictions, the PEME package guidelines can be fairly basic. So the enhanced PEME is designed to detect potential underlying conditions which might not be detected in a basic PEME. So failure to detect those conditions could endanger the seafarer's life and the lives of his fellow crew or her fellow crew whilst at sea. Because if the condition does present during the voyage, it's quite often the case where they're not available, they're not entitled to or not able to get immediate medical treatment. So the enhanced PEME is an effective tool to prevent high value claims and avoid potential diversion costs, repatriation costs, in some cases very high medical expenses, the cost of replacement of the crew. You might need to get flag dispensation to sail with the crew after disembarkation until you can replace the crew. And then also you could be exposed to things such as sickness wages, and sadly in some cases death or disability compensation. So the enhanced PEME is highly recommended to detect those conditions which could severely deteriorate during the voyage. The enhanced PEME also ensures that the members will benefit from an overall healthier workforce whilst on board the vessel. In many jurisdictions, this pre-employment medical examination is actually the first time a seafarer has actually undergone any kind of health check. So it is actually really beneficial for themselves. And what they can also do is benefit from the clinics where they undergo their PEME. Under our enhanced PEME program, they will also provide healthy lifestyle advice and guidance to the crew on maintenance medication or healthy diet and exercise whilst on board the vessel. Next slide, Eve.
Thanks, Lucy. Yeah, just to mention that we have clinics all over the Philippines, in Manila, Cebu, Iloilo, and now Davao as well. There are 12 clinics in all. The costs for the clinics range from $85 to for seafarers up to the age and including 40-year-old. It's $120 for 41 years and over. There are also clinics in Odessa in the Ukraine, which are, believe it or not, still functioning, and we are still getting statistics from them. So we've got a good range of clinics throughout the region which can furnish all our seafarers without too much travel. And I think we have a referral program and a concession program within the PEME package. We'll touch on them later, but basically the referrals are in case there's any incidental findings through the PEME process and need a second opinion that comes from an outside source, which we'll touch on later. Concession program, again, we run a concession program. Members do not have to have concessions, but we would normally recommend one. Again, we'll touch on that in the next few slides.
Thanks, Abby. Michael, do you want to take us through the India?
Yes, I will do. So the India program is slightly different to the Philippines and Ukraine program in that it's managed and audited by One Care Group and Marine Medical Services, Solutions. So One Care is the group company, and it provides a variety of healthcare services in several sectors. And the maritime branch of that is called Marine Medical Solutions, and their CEO and head doctor is Dr. Jens Tolsner. So one of the benefits of having the program run by Marine Medical Solutions is the links to the other One Care Group companies and the expertise and huge network of contacts that they have. So we currently have 15 clinics within the India PEME program, and the locations are set out on the slide. There are some locations that have more than one clinic. So all the clinics work to the medical standards set, maintained and audited by Marine Medical Solutions. And these standards include a fixed list of examinations that are standardized across the clinics to ensure consistency. And Marine Medical Solutions will then confirm the accuracy, thoroughness and objectivity of those examination procedures. And then finally, as Abby pointed out, for the Philippines and Ukraine, the clinics must refer cases that involve certain criteria or specified medical conditions for a second opinion.
Thanks, Michael. And Lucy, do you want to talk a little bit more on the referral program?
Yeah, of course. So as Abby and Michael have both mentioned, we do have an added benefit under our enhanced PEME programme, which is the referral for second opinion. So whilst the doctors in all of the clinics are professionals and know what they are looking for, if a condition is detected which potentially leaves the crew member in a borderline area, they can refer this for second opinion either to your Excellent Health Service, Dr. Charlie Easman, or to One Care Group, Dr. Jens Tulsner. So they will then review the PEME, review the findings, and give a final decision on whether the seafarer should be declared fit or unfit for further sea service. So ultimately, once that decision is made, the clinic will, if the crew member is declared fit, the final decision always lies with the member. So if the member chooses to employ them with the underlying condition or following the second opinion, they can, but failure to do so was also their choice. So they have the final choice. As I said, this is an added benefit of the enhanced participation in the enhanced PEME programme, because the cost of the referral to the independent doctors is actually borne by the club. So there's no additional cost to members for this.
Thanks, Lucy. And what about the concession program?
So yeah, the concession program is something that we specifically monitor in the Philippines. So it's not necessarily applied in India and Ukraine at the minute, but it's something that we always review. But in the Philippines, we find that there is a lot of underlying conditions suffered by Filipino crew. And when we initially set up the enhanced PEME program, we found that a lot of members were actually losing their very good and long-serving crew because of failed PEMEs. So we introduced the concession programme to ensure that members could retain their good workforce, retain the crew who had been long-standing and long-serving with them and very loyal. So we introduced it for rehires, so crew who have been with them for a long time, or senior officers, because obviously there is potential shortage of senior crew. So what we did is we worked with the doctors to design a concession program whereby if certain conditions are detected, such as hypertension and diabetes, this doesn't mean that the crew are unfit for duty. It means that they will be considered as a concession. The way it works is that the clinic would then highlight the condition detected. They would then refer it to the nominated person, either at member's office itself or the manning agents, if members have delegated that responsibility to the manning agents. They will explain the results of the pre-employment medical examination, highlight the conditions detected, and advise them that members will now have a choice as to whether to approve the seafarer for employment. If the seafarer is approved for employment, the concession form will highlight the condition detected, and the member or manning agent will sign that concession form, as well as the crew member themselves, so that they can be aware that this condition has been detected and they are responsible for the maintenance medication. That will ensure then that checks can be made to make sure that the crew member has the appropriate and sufficient medication for the full duration of the contract, and puts the onus on the crew member themselves to actually be responsible for maintenance of that medication. And then the signed concession form will also be provided to the club, so that we're aware of crew with potential conditions which could result in a claim. But we do encourage members to consider using this if they find that their participation in the programme initially is meaning they have a reduced number of crew supply. So it is an added service available to members if they wish to choose to use it.
Thanks, Lucy. Abby, can I come back to you on the costs for the PEME program?
Yeah. We have all the PEME costs are considered operational. That's the first thing. So they are borne by members, paid for by members. The club doesn't contribute to the PEME. I mean, that's part of, we consider it operational simply because it is a requirement by law that all seafarers have a PEME. So it's a cost that members would bear in any event. The referrals, so the PEME is the only cost to members. The referrals are any anything that comes out of those are paid for by the club. So our UK doctor and the doctors for India will do the referral paperwork, etc., and speak to the clinics. That cost is borne by the club. The main thing though is having the enhanced PEME is more than the basic, and over time the reflected savings come back in members' records. So obviously by doing an enhanced PEME, you're getting less claims, so that comes back on the members' record, and that's where the savings can be had.
And do you have any idea, Abby, on potential savings?
Yes, as you can see from the slide here, they're quite gobsmacking actually. We had an independent report done by our actuarial team back in 2022, and they came up with savings of 32.7 million across the 20 years that the club had been running the PEME. So that's $1.6 million a year in avoided claims, essentially. So yeah, quite phenomenal, really. It's definitely worth doing. And interestingly, actually, some of our members historically were paying more for a basic PEME than they were for our enhanced programme and all the benefits that come out of that. So, yeah.
So definitely worth considering for the members to do.
Yeah.
Michael, how are we selecting the various clinics that are on our accredited list?
Well, we went through a process at the start of last year where we very carefully selected the clinics that are part of the PEME scheme and which have been given the NorthStandard accreditation. So as part of that process, any clinics that wanted to be included were required to submit detailed proposals, and then these were scrutinised by the club and the PEME team, and accreditation then was only awarded to those that fulfilled all the necessary criteria. So I mean, at this time, we don't have any current plans to expand and take on further clinics, but we are continually assessing the need for further clinics and considering if there are reputable clinics in particular locations that should be added. So I think it's important to point out that the criteria for providing accreditation to a clinic is not simply that there's not a clinic or an accredited clinic in that area. And then further, I think just as important as assessing the need for further clinics is continually assessing the accredited clinics and ensuring that they continue to provide the necessary expertise and enhanced PEME services that at the level required by the members in the club. So what we do is monitor the performance of those clinics, and we monitor the numbers of examinations being conducted, the results, and the number of illness claims that arise from seafarers that have had their PEMEs conducted by those clinics. And the test records are required to be maintained by the clinics for 5 years from the date of the test. And we also require our accredited clinics to provide monthly statistics to the club. And then finally, there's an annual audit for the accredited clinics provided by our service providers, and clinics must complete those, and they must complete them successfully to remain an accredited clinic. And then in addition, the club can also decide to audit any of the clinics at any time to ensure they're consistently meeting those standards. So as with the last slide, and members can be assured that they are getting cost benefits of the enhanced PEME scheme, they can also be assured that the most thorough and rigorous testing of both their seafarers and the clinics themselves is being conducted.
Thanks very much, Michael. So this was just a quick overview of the PEME program that the club has in place. As mentioned, available in the Philippines, in India, and in the Ukraine. If you do have any questions on the PEME program, please do put them into the Q&A, and we'll get back to them later after we finish the two other services. But moving on to our first call service, we have this available in the US for some time already, and since 29 September, we launched a similar service in Brazil. In our first call team, we have Rob Robinson, Ross Weddle, and Kenny Chu. And we have Rob and Ross here with us today to take us through what First Call is and how you can use it. So can I ask Rob, do you want to kick off with First Call in the USA?
Yes, thanks, Yves. As Yves mentioned, First Call USA has been around for some time now. It was launched back in 2013. And historically, we would look at medical bills in the US and how extortionate they are, and we'd be a bit reactive to it, and we'd get a company to audit them, and we'd get some reductions, and that is a perfectly fine way to do it. But as with all these initiatives that we're talking about today, we want to be more proactive with the crew health and well-being, and we think that by doing so, it improves the experience for the seafarer and makes sure that they are looked after properly and improves the costs and controls the costs better. So that's what First Call does. And the best way to be proactive, the clue is in the name. When you have a medical issue on board, the first call that the master should make should be to the relevant correspondent in the port. And as you can see from the map, we have Hudson Tactics, they cover the east and west coast, and we have Schumann Consulting that cover the Gulf. There are contact details for each on our website. So if you go to the relevant port that the vessel is destined to call at, they will have the relevant contact details, their emails, phone numbers. And why it's important is because it makes sure that the crew member receives the most appropriate care as quickly as possible. And by doing that, we know what the situation is with the crew member and what is going to be needed. Are they going to be hospitalized? Can they be repatriated, or can they return to the vessel? And ultimately, that saves time and it saves money, and it prevents delays to the vessel whilst we wait for that information, which historically we saw. I don't need to tell anyone here how costly a delay to the vessel can be. Once we've controlled those costs and we've looked after the crew member, we get the medical bills come in, and as we always have done, those bills are reduced and negotiated and audited. And as you can see from the stats, we save on average of $1 million per year. I think the current total for the First Call service in the USA is $16 million saved since 2013. And it results in an average cost reduction of over 50% per claim. So if you use First Call, your claims are being reduced by half. And ultimately, there's lots of costs on top of that, such as not being delayed by the vessel, that we can't quantify, but you can imagine is significant. And in that, we are always looking for jurisdictions where we can expand and service. And as in this year, early this year in September, we expanded into Brazil, and I will hand over to Ross, who will briefly touch on Brazil.
Thanks, Rob. So yeah, we were extremely excited to work on and launch First Call Brazil. It builds on the success that we've had in the US. It's a system that we know that works and has served the membership extremely well now for 12 years or so. Brazil had been on our radar for a number of years. It was a jurisdiction that was regularly addressed by members and internally within the club as being a jurisdiction with a high exposure to significant medical costs. So similar to the US approach that Rob touched upon, it called for a more proactive response to be available in the event of crew issues. So first and foremost, First Call Brazil remains a 24/7 service, which is available to the master and to members for disembarkation of ill or injured crew. This is a program that we run in collaboration with two correspondents, again, very similar to First Call in the US. We use ProIndy and Brazil P&I on a north-south split to try and make that quite easy for the vessel's master to understand. So ProIndy assist with Rio de Janeiro and ports north of there, and Brazil P&I work in Santos and ports south from there. While we can evidence significant cost reduction. The key point, as Rob really touched upon, is ensuring the crew members' welfare is the priority, and to that end, what we really seek to achieve is to identify the most suitable and appropriate place for treatment of a crew member, and thereafter, as a side benefit, it's ensuring that the treatment costs are reasonable and in line with local rates. It's probably worth being fairly candid from the outset that whilst medical costs in Brazil are significant, we don't typically see them at the same level as we would in the US, and therefore we wouldn't necessarily expect the savings per year to be at a similar level. But what we are fairly optimistic about seeing is similar percentage level savings, and it's something that we will be monitoring, particularly over the next coming years as and when more cases are reported to us. Again, continuing with the consistency between the programs, the structure is identical insofar as billing is concerned. So for both the US and for Brazil, the correspondents will charge their usual fee for any correspondent activity, whether that is updating on medical reports, translations, so on and so forth, anything that they would do in the run-of-the-mill day-to-day job of the correspondent is charged as normal. There is a second fee, which is a percentage fee of up to 25% for any saving that is made on the medical costs. That the key point really to stress here is that the percentage is only charged if there is a saving made. So as a result of using the program, a member will never be worse off as a result. The fee is capped strictly on the percentage of the saving that's made. If there's no reduction, there's no fee charge for the auditing. So what that really means is that members can be assured that the correspondents are always working their hardest to achieve the best possible result in these types of matter. Yves, I'll hand back to you at this point.
Thanks very much, Ross. Really interesting, and I really hope that Brazil first call will be as successful as the US one. Well, better if we don't need it at all, but unfortunately we do. Moving on, I see some of questions are coming in. I see some questions are coming in on the chat channel as well. So please do put your questions in the Q&A one, so I don't need to hop across both channels. But our last well-being service that we want to highlight to you is our post-repatriation medical program. On this program, we have Abby and Lucy, who are running this for the club, and I am going to Lucy first.
Thanks, Eve. So the PEME, obviously we've mentioned, we recommend the enhanced PEME program to prevent claims, but we do appreciate that claims still do arise. So this is designed for Filipino seafarers. We appreciate that whilst we're trying to prevent, there will still be illnesses, and of course, unfortunately, there's always injuries on board. So we designed this to basically manage the post-repatriation medical side of things. So the program is designed to ensure that when the Filipino seafarers return into the Philippines, they can benefit from prompt treatment on return. We recommend that when there is an incident, we engage the services of the post-repatriation medical providers as soon as possible so that they can actually preempt the seafarer's arrival. They can arrange to collect him from the airport on arrival in the Philippines if needed. They can arrange ambulance services or just car services, and then they can ensure that a treatment plan is in place for the seafarer's arrival. We do ensure that under this post-repatriation medical program, the seafarer benefits from good quality medical services at reputable facilities with the appropriate specialists treating the seafarers. We're mindful in the Philippines that unfortunately it can be very pro-labour, so we have to ensure that the doctors are aware of the case law and requirements on reporting in relation to medical treatment, so they will ensure that the completion of the treatment is done as promptly as possible, bearing in mind the consequences of failure to complete within 120 days or 240 days. So the doctors in these facilities do need to be aware of those requirements and the contractual provisions which the crew member signs up for with their member to ensure that the seafarer receives the treatment appropriate to members' liability. So we're not engaging in treatment for conditions for which members are not liable to treat. It avoids the inflation of unnecessary medical costs, because we found that in some cases, some of the doctors in the Philippines were actually prolonging the treatment for the benefit of the seafarers at the consequence of members being exposed to additional medical costs, which they aren't actually liable for. So the service providers under the PRM will ensure that this is avoided. In addition, the service providers will ensure that the seafarers are not exposed to claimant lawyers. We found that there is in the Philippines quite a risk of exposure to claimant lawyers within the hospitals generally, because obviously they're looking to canvass the services of their services to seafarers to engage them in pursuing claims. So that's another added benefit of the PRM. They ensure that the seafarers are escorted to the various specialists and are not exposed to those potential lawyers to pursue claims. So the PRM is basically designed as a good claims management tool, but the main benefit is, of course, good treatment for the seafarers to ensure that they have their illness or injury tended to and return to sea. And we'll just move to the next slide now, please.
Thanks for that, Luz. Yeah, we've got 2 clinics that are presently part of the PRM programme, and that's Ship to Shore and Ship Health. They're both in Manila, but they're basically they manage the treatment. So they're management centres. So basic treatment might be done within the clinic, but other than that, it would be managed outside of the clinic in a manner that Lucy's already touched on. When we're talking about security and keeping the crew away from ambulance chasing lawyers, etc., the clinics have, obviously, like most places in Manila, have their own security guards, but not just on the front door. They're throughout the buildings to try and stop the passage of business cards between crew. They have cameras on to watch, so that security really is very tight within these clinics. So and like Lucy's also said, they're all very versed in what's expected under the contract, as opposed to being a blank check for health care for the crew member. They're there to serve the members' needs. Oh, you're on mute there, Eve.
That's a rookie mistake that I did there. That brings us to the end, and I'll be happy to move on to the Q&A. I've seen that there's a number of questions that have come in. Abby, just to stay with you, I saw that there was a question on clinics and PEME program in other countries outside of the 3 where we are providing it. What is the recommendation of the club there?
Yeah, thanks, Eve. Basically, we have guidelines for the rest of the world, which can be found on our website. So those guidelines will help you find an appropriate clinic, order that clinic, get sensible testing levels. And if you were looking at elsewhere, you can also, it will be at members' cost, but they can also ask for the assistance of our doctors within our PEME programs, and they can assist members in finding clinics outside of the jurisdictions that we've got. The other thing to bear in mind, obviously, the reason we've focused on the Philippines in particular, and then secondary India and Odessa, is that this is very much a claims-driven environment. So where we see claims happening, we try and mitigate them. Same with the first call. Where we see claims happening, we try and mitigate them. And this is the idea behind all of our programs that we run. So that's when you're asking about Indonesia in particular, we really don't see many claims coming from there. So it's a cost consideration.
Thanks, Abby. And there was two quick things that I will say. The recording of this webinar will be shared with all attendees. I believe that will go via email and that it will be available on the club's website and YouTube as well. But in any case, definitely by email. So that should follow after this. There was one question on email address to ask questions. Is that specific for the PEME program? We'll share the slides as well as with the recording. So there is 3 different emails that are available for either the PRM, the first call, or the PEME program. Or if I can ask one of you to respond to Anna in the Q&A with the emails, then we'll put it there. And then I saw there was one question on cover from Irini. Lucy or Abby, I'm going to direct it to you. And there was a similar one from George. So when a concession note is signed and the company employs that seafarer, not being aware of the pre-existing condition that the seafarer has, is there any consequence on the cover that the club provides?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Eve. No, there is no consequence on cover. I think ultimately undertaking enhanced PEME screening is actually a very good thing. So we wouldn't want to punish members then to use a concession by having any impact on cover. So if a concession is signed and then the crew member falls ill during his contract as a result of that condition for which the concession is signed, there will be no impact on cover. The claim will be covered as normal in accordance with members' terms of entry with the club. So absolutely no impact on cover. And then the second part of the question, the exposure of company towards possible medical claims. Unfortunately, this does not prevent exposure to claims. There is still the potential for the seafarer to pursue a claim because ultimately you will have basically been considered to have assumed the risk of that condition being presented during the employment. So there is still exposure to claims, but what we think is with the concession, at least there's knowledge and guidance that the seafarer can benefit from on maintenance medication. So we could use that as a defence. Say, for example, if he did have a concession and failed to self-medicate during the contract, we can then use that as a potential defence, but it will not prevent claims being pursued.
Thanks, Lucy. And that, I think, replies as well to George, his question, asking whether a concession note would be helpful in the courts in Manila so that they can refuse a claim.
Again, you're basically employing the seafarer with the condition, you're assuming that risk. So there is it potentially could be used as a defence, as I've mentioned before, if there's failure to self-medicate, but ultimately you are considered to have assumed the risk with the condition. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me see what else has come in. There's a question from Cor. Are there any programs to educate local agents in proper follow-up procedures for repatriated seafarers, highlighting the legal and the proper due process? Lucy, Abby, I think this is more PRM related.
Sorry, I can't see that question.
How can I make this higher? I put a thumbs up on the question from Cor.
What are we asking again? Where was it?
If there are any programs available to educate local agents.
Right, okay, got you. Short answer is from the club, no, but from the clinics, yes. Quite a lot of our certainly our larger PEME clinics hold actually quite a lot of information about the seafarer for the seafarer, and they have their own apps for monitoring health conditions, improving lifestyles and what have you. It's very difficult though. It's a very difficult one. I think it's something that Cor, Lucy and I discussed last time we were together actually. That it's one thing saying, well, it's all on an app, you can follow the data and what have you, but not everybody is, you know, touching their phone all the time and checking, and it's very difficult on board to change a lifestyle if that is what's in front of you. But yeah, I would say the clinics that come to mind are Supercare and Halcyon, that certainly both have quite large programs to help educate seafarers. I'm not sure about the agents.
Thanks, Abby, for that. If I can direct the question to Rob and Ross on First Call, what is your advice to members? Should they be using First Call in these two countries for all of the claims, or only for the major claims that they are expecting?
Yeah, we'd recommend for all claims, minor, major. As I said when I was talking earlier, a big benefit of First Call is preventing delays to the vessel, and often we see the delays occur when it's these minor conditions, because if First Call isn't used, it just takes longer for the seafarer to be treated. So yeah, we would recommend minor, major illnesses, everything goes through a First Call, and as Ross said, it doesn't cost the member more to use First Call, so there are no downsides really.
Thanks, Rob. We have a question on HIV testing as part of the routine PEME that is being done for seafarers. And Abby, Lucy, I believe on our website we have advice available on HIV testing.
Yeah, that's correct. I think I can answer two questions in one here, but starting with the HIV, HIV testing is included in our two schedules. So we have Schedule A for seafarers less than 40 years old and Schedule B for seafarers 40 and over. The HIV test is a requirement under both of those. And then aside from that, we actually do have some guidance on the website available on the link that is at the start of the presentation to our crew and wellbeing page, and it's basically advice on HIV specific to the Philippines and the Republic Act that is available there. So whilst we recommend testing, we must also highlight that you cannot discriminate against a seafarer who has an HIV positive result. So then we need to work with the members and the manning agents to ensure that the seafarer is educated on his medication requirements, and obviously to ensure that he remains fit and healthy throughout the employment. So there is a link in the PEME page to the HIV guidance, so that is quite useful. And then the second question, which I've seen, I think somebody had asked the cost of the PEME programme. So whilst on the package details, as I said, we've got two schedules for the Philippines specifically, package A and package B. A is for the under 40s, and that package is $85 US, and then the second package, which is more intensive, so we include for the 40 and over, we include stress test and cardio profile with Q risk on that, because we've seen high incidence of cardiac issues in the younger seafarers. So anybody who's over 40 will undergo those enhanced screening, and the cost of that package is $120 US. So that's for the enhanced standard. Obviously, if there are things that are not included in our package, members can elect to add those additional tests as well, and there will be an additional cost for those, but we don't set the parameters for those additional tests. That will be clinic specific.
Thanks, Lucy. And then also just to add, for India, we similarly have two schedules available. However, for India, we do not have fixed pricing available. It's something that we are striving to agree on with the clinics. But at the moment, there are different pricing for different clinics within India. One of the there's one question here from Sarah that came in, whether all the programs, the 3 programs that we discussed, are they available to all members, or is there an application required? I think that's I can take that one also, I hope. There is no application required. Any club member, any NorthStandard club member can automatically use any of the 3 programs. In case of first call, you reach out to any of those correspondents that are listed on those flyers. Similarly, for PRM, you reach out to those 2 clinics, and for the PEME program, you go to one of the accredited clinics, and you tell the clinic that you would like to have the NorthStandard enhanced PEME on your seafarer. So there's no application required.
Just to add to that as well, that when members are looking to become part of the program, yeah, absolutely, you're right in everything you've said, Eve, but also the member doesn't have to stick to one clinic. If they want to use several clinics, you know, you don't have to choose a clinic and stay with that. They can have their seafarers go into any number of the clinics, like you say. Just let them know.
Yeah, correct.
Eve, sorry, just to point out, I was just going to point out one thing. You were talking about the lists of the medical exams, just to say to everybody that those lists are available on our website, both for Philippines, Ukraine and India. So if you want the full lists, you can find them on the PEME site section of our website.
Thanks, Michael. That's a good point. Lucy, can I come back to you on something? We discussed this earlier when you were talking about claims and how they are being fought in the Philippine courts. Do we have any experience with an owner filing a claim against a seafarer who did not take their medicines the way that they should have taken?
In my experience, no, it would be rare for an owner to pursue a claim against the seafarer. But as I mentioned earlier, if there is evidence that he did fail to self-medicate whilst he had the obligation to do so, we could use that in a defence of a claim the seafarer would pursue against the owner.
Okay. As part of our PEME or PRM programs, do we cover any mental health issues?
Depends what you mean by cover. We don't do psychological testing anymore. We used to do it and found that actually we weren't getting results from those testing. So we dropped that from the program. When I say we don't get results, if we're not getting a proper sort of result from the crew that it becomes part of a claim, then it means that the test isn't worth doing. And I think there's a school of this 50-50, there's a school of thought that like them. And I do think psychological testing is a good thing when you're looking at whether a crew member is fit to be a fitter or fit to be an officer. So those sort of things, but not for mental well-being. They just don't yield proper results.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Abby. I think the results that we sometimes see from these psychometric tests, they are not always accurate, and depending on the type of test that is being done, the crew can easily prepare themselves for those questions. And it does not give you a guarantee that 2 months down the line there isn't going to be a sudden snap in the person's mind.
Correct. It's different from taking a test as however many months at sea. Sorry, Lucy.
No, Abby, thanks. I was just going to add that obviously whilst we don't do the specific testing, the clinics really are concerned with overall seafarer health and well-being. So they will provide, advice, as I've mentioned earlier on, about healthy lifestyle whilst on board. That includes physical and mental health, really. So just to advise them, obviously to make sure that they are aware that there potentially could be issues with isolation. So it's not a specific test, but obviously education from the clinics, but also from the managing agents and members on good mental health and well-being whilst at sea is obviously recommended.
And Eve, so I'm just going to add, because I think cause questions sort of followed on from that is that sometimes members see the biggest challenge is sort of lifestyle and follow-up. I think, as sort of been mentioned, there is that sort of lifestyle advice or brief lifestyle advice in the PEMEs. Also, the club does provide advice. When I say advice, is advice on our website about mental health and how lifestyle can affect that, both physical and mental health, and the things that seafarers can do and members can assist with to ensure that seafarers are leading sort of healthy lifestyles. However, I mean, ultimately that is an operational issue for members, and I'm sure that's something that they're already involved in providing, but we can assist with sort of certain bits of advice where needed.
Good point. Thanks, Michael. I have another question, something that we often come along when we meet with members. They have multiple clubs, they have their own version of an enhanced PEME in place that they prefer to carry out. What would be the difference between, let's call it a member's in-house enhanced PEME as compared to our club's enhanced PEME? Lucy?
Yeah, so I think the added benefit from the club's enhanced PEME, which members would gain, is the referral service. So they would have the independent medical advice from our doctors, either on the India program or the Philippines and Ukraine program, whereby they can actually benefit from those. In addition, we obviously have the annual audit by the independent providers. The doctors will inspect the clinics, make sure that all of the clinic equipment is up to the correct standard. They have the correct certification to ensure that the package guidelines are closely followed. They monitor trends in the specific areas on conditions suffered by seafarers, and they can adapt the PEME program to that. So it's all of the additional services that you would benefit from in the enhanced PEME program, which are provided by the independent doctors. And as we've already mentioned, those additional services are at no additional cost to the member. So it's just the normal PEME cost per member, but the additional services of audit, inspection, referral, independent advices that members would benefit from.
Thanks, Lucy. We are coming towards the end of our 1 hour. Maybe just one last question on the PRM side. We have those 2 clinics that are listed there. Is there any option for members to choose another clinic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, much in the line of with how the PEME program runs, members can use whichever clinic they wish. It's just they wouldn't be part of the club PRM, that's all. Obviously, if they use their own clinics or preferred clinics, we would offer our guidance as we would as claims handlers on any claim. So we would provide that guidance on times and dates and what should and shouldn't be in reports.
Okay, thank you so much, Abby. And thanks very much to everyone for tuning in. As mentioned, we'll make the slides and the recording available on the club's website or via email. And thanks very much for all of your questions. If there is any further question, please do reach out to any of us on the mentioned email addresses. Thank you very much and have a nice day.